What does it take to become a genius who changes the world? To master anatomy, engineering, painting, architecture, botany, and military design, with no apps, no internet, no coffee shops, just raw, relentless brain power. Leonardo da Vinci wasn't just a painter or an inventor. He was a one-man revolution, working out ideas in a time when candles were high-tech. His daily routine wasn't ordinary. It was obsessive, it was fluid, and it was deeply intentional. Leonardo didn't follow the rules of time, he reshaped them. In this video, we break down how Leonardo lived, worked, slept, and thought. We'll reveal his secret weapon so you can learn from the master of all masters every single day. Leonardo da Vinci was born in 1452 in Vinci, a small town in Tuscany. As the illegitimate child of a notary and a peasant woman, he was considered an outsider. He had no access to formal education, but he made up for it with a mind that burned with questions. That curiosity transformed him into the ultimate Renaissance man. He trained as a painter in the workshop of Andrea del Verrocchio and went on to create masterpieces like The Last Supper and Mona Lisa. But he didn't stop at art. He dissected over 30 human bodies to understand the mechanics of muscles and bones. He envisioned flying machines, submarines, and tanks. He studied optics, geology, and hydraulics in an age when superstition ruled most minds. Leonardo worked under powerful patrons, Ludovico Sforza in Milan, Cesare Borgia, and eventually King Francis of France, who welcomed him as a treasured guest. When Leonardo died in 1519 in Amboise, in a French chateau, legend has it that the king cradled him in his arms, mourning a mind that belonged not to his time, but to ours. Leonardo's mornings began in quiet observation. He didn't rush. He watched. He studied. He wrote, "The noblest pleasure is the joy of understanding." He would often begin his day sketching in one of his many notebooks, capturing river flows, human hands, plant structures, or mechanical concepts. And he wrote using mirror script, his distinctive left-handed backward handwriting. Maybe it was to avoid smudging the ink. Maybe it was to keep his notes private. Or maybe it was just another layer of mystery. But one thing is clear. For Leonardo, curiosity wasn't a mood. It was a discipline. As he warned, study without desire spoils the memory, and it retains nothing that it takes in. As the morning wore on, Leonardo shifted from observing the world to transforming it. He might have spent these hours painting a masterpiece like The Last Supper, or dissecting a cadaver to map out muscle structures. Sometimes he would sketch inventions, a flying machine, a parachute, a fortress wall. Other times he'd immerse himself in a book of mathematics or architecture, scribbling notes in the margins. But here's the catch. He often left his projects unfinished. Why? Because every answer gave birth to a new question. Why is the sky blue? How does blood flow in the heart? What keeps birds aloft? Why do rivers curve? He once said, "Art is never finished, only abandoned." And learning never exhausts the mind. Leonardo worked in blocks, sinking deep into a problem before jumping to another field entirely. But this wasn't distraction, it was design. He believed that switching between disciplines was how new ideas were born, by applying anatomy to art, engineering to painting, and music to mechanics. He unlocked insights nobody else could see. Leonardo may have been a genius, but he didn't live in his head. He moved constantly. In the afternoons, he often wandered, sometimes through forests, other times through the bustling markets of Milan or Florence. He studied faces, gestures, and emotions. These weren't idle strolls, they were research expeditions. Each walk gave him material for a new painting, a new drawing, a new hypothesis. He also played the lyre beautifully. It wasn't just a hobby. He performed for nobility and dignitaries, using music to charm patrons and sharpen his mind. As for food, Leonardo wrote of a preference for simple, plant-based meals, vegetables, fruits, grains. He avoided meat, possibly out of compassion for animals, possibly for health. He once said, "Vitality and beauty are gifts of nature for those who live according to its laws." For Leonardo, movement and nature weren't luxuries, they were necessities. His afternoons were not breaks from work, they were the work. They recharged his senses and sparked new insights. Evenings were when Leonardo's mind truly roamed free. By candlelight, he might have continued his dissections, drawing the intricacies of a heart valve or the tendons in a foot. He'd often write at night, long pages of notes, reflections, ideas, and diagrams, sometimes blending scientific analysis with poetic musings. He'd sketch machines in motion, experiment with light and shadow, or test the laws of perspective by drawing objects at different angles. Some nights he simply read, diving into texts on philosophy, engineering, or anatomy. His sleep schedule is still debated. Some believe he practiced polyphasic sleep, napping in short bursts, but more likely he simply followed the rhythm of inspiration. When a problem gripped him, he worked until exhaustion. He wrote, "As a well-spent day brings happy sleep, so a life well spent brings happy death." To Leonardo, sleep wasn't a refuge, it was a reward. Now, here's Leonardo's real secret weapon, the notebook. He filled thousands of pages, over 7,000 have survived, filled with machine diagrams, anatomical studies, bird wings, water flows, jokes, riddles, poems, and even grocery lists. They were chaotic, brilliant, unfiltered. One day he'd write, "Describe the tongue of the woodpecker." And another day, "Measure the city of Milan." They were part sketchpad, part journal, part laboratory. He didn't just record the world, he argued with it on paper. He returned to the same ideas again and again, refining them like a sculptor working stone. He wrote, "It is useful to constantly observe, note, and consider." So if you want to think like Leonardo, start writing. Don't worry about being neat. Scribble, doodle, think out loud on paper. That's how ideas evolve. Leonardo wasn't a superhero. He was a relentless worker, a chronic thinker, a man who never stopped asking why. His days were messy, brilliant, demanding, and always intentional. If there's one lesson to remember, it's this: simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. So, what can we learn from Leonardo's daily rhythm? First, be endlessly curious, not just about big things, about everything. Ask weird questions. Second, switch disciplines. Let science inform your art, or art fuel your strategy. Third, draw your ideas. Sketching is thinking. Fourth, work in cycles. Alternate deep focus with exploratory wondering. And finally, write it all down. Your notebook is your brain's second hard drive. Leonardo didn't wait for the perfect moment. He created it. That's why we're still learning from him 500 years later. If this inspired you, subscribe to the channel for more routines of history's greatest minds, and drop a comment below. Which part of Leonardo's day would you try to copy? And share this with someone creative who needs to hear it, because genius is not about being born special. It's about staying curious every single day.